Hello, fellow magicians, and welcome back to the channel. In this episode, I'm going to talk about toxic masculinity. So stay tuned and I'll tell you the story. Life is a battle, and spirituality is the toolkit you need to survive it. Through my own personal experience, I will show you how to live spirituality on a daily basis. This is also the journal of the Averamento Sustainable Community, an experiment on human evolution, seeking to create a different type of human society based on sacred principles. Hello, fellow magicians, and welcome back to the channel. This is my second video on this series that I'm making about the battle of the sexes. In this episode, I'm going to discuss about toxic masculinity. But yeah, this toxic masculinity is something that I think is highly toxic in society and is highly dangerous and erosive for society. So what is toxic masculinity? How can we define what toxic masculinity is? For me, toxic masculinity is expressing the following qualities. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, but usually men are the ones that express these behaviors. So it includes drinking till you drop, being aggressive and destructive just to show your power, to have as many sexual encounters as you can possibly have, to never show emotions, to objectivize women, to think that women are less, are not smart, that they're not capable. Toxic masculinity is also a social issue because when men want to change, usually the social norms are reinforced by peers. Another symptom of toxic masculinity is the need for success, and success as defined by society. So, like have a lot of women, drink a lot, have a lot of money, have a lot of power, etc. Another behavior of toxic masculinity is to think that a no, saying no can become yes if you apply some insistence. Yeah, so I'm not the only one that is saying this. There's actually I'm basing this on a book, and I read only the summary of the book because I just wanted to know what the book was about and if it was worth reading or not. But this book actually kind of like reinforced what I already think about toxic masculinity. It's a book that is called, and I'll translate it for you guys here on the screen because I'm going to read it in Spanish because the author is Spanish speaking. But the book is called Machismo al Desnudo, del Macho Alfa al Hombre Alfa, and is by the author Mauricio Suárez León. And what do I mean by this issue of toxic masculinity? One of the things that I've seen in society is that, for men is harder to explore their feminine side because society tells them that being a man means to act a certain way. And the problem with that is that it's not enough to be born male, right? To have the Y chromosome and to be born male. You have to actually act like a guy, like a true man, right? Like a true man. You have to act. It's not enough that you are born male, you have to also act as a man. And I think here, females or women are a little bit luckier because we can actually explore our sexuality easier than guys, because if I walk down the street wearing pants, no one is going to think that I'm a guy. No one's going to say that I'm a male. But if a guy starts walking down the street or wants to go outside wearing a skirt, then that's going to be an issue. So women have it easier to explore their their whole humanity or humanness, if you will. But society, for some reason, is actually telling men that if they want to really be men, they have to truly show that they are men. And the problem with that is that usually those expressions of manhood are these toxic things that I mentioned. There's probably more than the list that that I said, but the ones that I said or point out are usually the ones that are most commonly perceived as masculine. So within this toxic masculinity, I think that the most dangerous thing is that society is kind of giving you the hint that in order to be a man, you have to shut down the feminine. And the problem with that is that you have to shut down both, and first and foremost, the feminine within you, and then the feminine without, right? So in order to be a true man, you have to completely shut down your feminine side, meaning your emotions. And then, of course, do that to yourself. And by doing that to yourself, you're, men are somewhat castrating themselves because, as Nora Vincent said, by the time that they are fully grown, the only expression left for their emotions is rage, sadly. There are some people that are saying that the feminist movement is actually strong, and that sexism against women is not there anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. But that is hardly from the truth. I think that misogyny right now is taking a scale that is extremely dangerous. First of all, there are new social movements that are, for men that actually hate women, and they actually say this, and they are very violent against women, and they actually explore their fantasies of how they want to punish and hurt women. During the lockdown, the violence against women skyrocketed, especially here in Latin America, in Spain, and in other countries. And there's a book that is very interesting. And the book is called Men Who Hate Women, and is by the author Laura Bates. And in this book, she actually explores these new societies, all men societies, or exclusive men societies, that their only purpose is to, give an outlet to the rage that they feel against women. But, here you have to understand where it comes from. I mean, society has told them that they have to shut down the feminine within them. So whatever you do within, you're going to do without. This is a hermetic principle: as within, so without. If you shut down and kill the feminine within you, you're going to do the same with the female without you. I mean, the female external to you. And so that's why I think it's so toxic when you start doing these things towards men, because men are actually suffering because of this lack of intimacy and lack of emotionality that they don't have. Society has told them that expressing this intimacy between themselves is actually negative, and it can be interpreted as homosexuality, when it's actually not the case. I mean, if you express emotional intimacy to another human being, that doesn't mean anything beyond, that there is a friendship or that there's some type of bonding between yourself, but it doesn't have to be physical. And see, that's another toxic behavior, or another symptom of toxic masculinity, that usually men perceive any type of kindness or interest from a woman as a sexual flirting or a sexual proposition or something like that, which is not the case, absolutely. Another symptom of this toxic masculinity is that when you perceive that, showing affection or kindness is a sign of sexual desire, or an opportunity to express sexual desire, to especially to a woman, because women are the ones that actually express that. is absolutely wrong. I think that that's toxic masculinity. And here, I'm going to bring a very famous and recent case. Lady Gaga, when she was walking down the red carpet and she saw uh, this guy falling, and she, raced to help him. The first thing that he did was abuse that kindness. And that's toxic masculinity. If you think that, because a woman is being kind, that's an open door to abuse. Sexism has actually castrated men. And how? Because of this lack of emotions. Because of men, usually when they are fully grown, they don't know how to express their emotions, or deal with their emotions, or or manage their emotions, for that matter. And the problem with that is that when men are grown ups, they have a hard time expressing emotions and affection and tenderness and kindness towards their partner and towards their children. And this creates a huge social issue. And also the problem with this lack of intimacy and lack of emotions, and having the outlet for expressing emotions properly, is that men usually experience depression, anxiety, drug addiction, and no wonder that's why men are are the gender with the highest suicide rate. And because of all of this, yeah, and a caveat here also, sometimes these sexism or machismo, as we say it in Latin America, is actually enforced by women. Women expect men to behave like that, and if men don't behave like that, then women punish those guys because they are not expressing themselves as is expected. So women can also be very sexist against men expressing their feminine side, or uh, their female side, if you will. But I'll elaborate on that later. Uh, that's why I think that men should be feminists. First, for themselves, because they need to rescue these female side that they have, meaning their emotionality, and also because if we don't help them do this, then society is going to be in a big mess. When feminism in the 60s, 70s, when feminism was picking up speed again, there was a movement funded or founded by women that was called the Men's Liberation Movement. And one of the guys of that liberation movement said that our enemy isn't women, it's the role that we are forced to play. Um, Usually, men rely on women to provide the space for emotional intimacy. And the problem with that is that right now there's a lot of friction between genders, between women and men. And the problem with that is that, people are not getting married. People are less and less interested in getting married. Look at China's example. And I'm going to put here a video of a guy that is actually exploring this, also of this highly toxic interaction between genders that is leading to the breakdown of society, I think. So yeah, I mean, if women are the source of this emotional intimacy, what happens if they are cut off from this uh, intimacy? That need of intimacy and that lack of intimacy is going to be expressed as rage against women, because they feel that they usually, men that are feeling this don't understand what's happening, but what's happening is that all human beings need intimacy. If we are cut off from that intimacy, we are going to feel something. We are going to feel depressed. We're going to feel all of these things. But men usually express their emotions as rage against women because they think that we are the ones responsible for that, because they feel like we are cutting them off for something that they are entitled to, right? Instead of them having this intimate interaction between themselves, we are the only outlet that they have for that. The other problem with that is that, if this intimacy is too much, or is perceived as too much, even between a man and a woman, then men get scared of being vulnerable. Or if it is withdrawn, that leads to frustration, and so then all of this is going to be expressed again as anger, as rage, both the frustration of not getting the emotional intimacy, and also the fear of being vulnerable is going to be expressed as rage and anger. All right, so the conclusion of all this is that, sexism overall is violence. Is violence first against oneself, and then against others, both female and male. It doesn't matter which gender you are, but if you have this sexism, because sexism can be expressed both in women and in men, that is violence. And we should actually be kinder to each other, and be aware of this level of violence that we express against each other. And the problem that I have with this is, for me, in my case, machismo, so sexism, I think that is said in English. So machismo and misogyny are alive and kicking. And especially, the worst symptom of this is that, machismo and misogyny are alive and kicking when men get hired to promote female products like makeup, like clothing, sports clothing. And that's happening. Maybe in Latin America we are not as aware as in the northern countries, but it is happening. So to what level are we going to tolerate this absurd interaction and toxic masculinity? There is something that is called sacred masculinity, and I'm going to talk about that in the next chapter. But, same as there is toxic masculinity, there's also toxic femininity and toxic feminism. But if you want to know about it, then stay tuned for my next video. For now, I thank you for being with me, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Thank you very much, fellow magicians, for staying with me till the end of this chapter. I also want to make a request that you please subscribe to this channel and give it a like and share it with your friends, because that will help me grow and keep doing videos that are spiritual and that are meant to help other people. As usual, I'm looking for members to the community that I'm creating. If you're interested, I'm gonna leave the link to the community down in the description of this video. And as always, if you want me to expand on any of the topics that I touch here, please write a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next chapter.